We are back for round 3. So in order to celebrate Mother's Day, a beautiful Sunday, the day that we used to do brunch, whatever you're celebrating, I figured it was the perfect time to take a foray into brunch food. So I've got my cast iron skillet, Hey Lodge. I've got my trusty can of Underwood Sparkling Rosé. And we're ready to go. So today's recipe is inspired by Tortilla Española. So Tortilla Española is not traditionally limited to being a brunch food. It's kind of an any time of day food and comes in many different formats as a tapa in and of itself, or sometimes used in fillings for bocadillas. It is really, one of those ubiquitous foods of Spain, and I love it. So our version is going to take it a little more to the omelet-y side of things with 6 eggs and a higher kind of cheese ratio. We're also going to throw in some chorizo to give it a little bit of a savory bite. And then I've got smoked paprika, garlic powder, and black pepper. So we're kind of taking the normal Tortilla Española base and turning it into something a little more brunchy. All right, very, very simple recipe. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Take about a cup of finely chopped onions right into the hot pan. Get that going. Make sure that the oil that's in the pan really coats the onion. Underwood's so good. I'm practicing my product placements. All right, next, and this is the first of the interesting ingredients. I'm using shredded frozen hash brown. I did a little bit of like a freezer pantry dive because I figured it'd be nice to use up some of the stuff that's been hiding in the back. So you could use your own thinly sliced potatoes. Throw them right in here with the onion, just brown them all up. I happen to be using something that I already had. You do you. All right. Throwing this right in here. There are a few icebergs of frozen hash browns still in there. We really just kind of want to let the onions get translucent and maybe get a little bit of a brown on the potato, not critical. All right, so I've got the heat up. There's plenty of moisture in the frozen potatoes, so I'm really not worried about burning, and if we burn, it's just a nice, good coloration to it. Next, we're going to move on to the other critical step. So I've got 6 eggs here in my little container, and I'm going to whip them. So you do really want to spend some time whipping air into the egg because it's going to make it nice and fluffy and ends up helping it, oh that's my oven, ends up helping all of the ingredients kind of stay together without getting different layers of density. It's also a really nice way to get like a tender, pleasant to eat omelet. So I've got my blade from my immersion blender. I've got like the turbo stick. You can use whatever kind you want. If you do this by hand, it's just going to take a little while. What you're really going for is you just want to see the egg increase in volume. So I'm pulling it out a little bit of the egg so that the air can kind of mixed in with the blade. Sorry if this sounds unpleasant, it'll be over soon. There we are. And if you notice, the egg did actually increase in relative volume, which means we got a good bit of air in there. So I'm considering that a success. Take the blade out, drop it here. All right, so our potato and eggs are going, sorry, our potato and onion are going. Getting a little bit ahead of myself. Next, we're going to go ahead and add our flavor to the potatoes. So I'm going to throw in about a teaspoon of garlic powder, about a teaspoon of black pepper, And then 2 teaspoons, maybe a tablespoon of smoked paprika. Give this a whirl. Starting to smell amazing. All right, so I'm noticing that my onions are pretty translucent. So now is the time to add the egg. To do this though, we are going to take this mixture out. Let's move things around a little bit. Definitely need a bigger kitchen. Scrape it out into this big bowl. I'm trying to get all of the little bits out of here because it's going to be important to make sure that the final product doesn't stick to the pan. All right, turn the heat really, really low. And what we'll do, next quick step is I'm going to butter the pan. This is going to help keep the tortilla from sticking, and it will also help build the crust. So I'll probably do a little bit more. We're going to go ahead and really quickly take our egg mixture, pour it in with the potato. Then I've got about 6 ounces of chopped chorizo and about a cup of grated manchego cheese. Nothing fancy, just throw it all in. Give it a stir. All right, and a quick one more time around. Turn the heat back up. And drop in, heat back up, yeah. And then drop in your egg and potato mixture. All right, so now I'm just gonna smooth this around. It's about 1 inch from the rim, which is good because I think the egg will probably increase in volume just a little bit. All right, and so now this step is pretty important. So we're not gonna do a whole lot to it. We're gonna let the heat from the cast iron, the butter, work together to create somewhat of a crust. We're kind of letting the omelet set. That's this step, it's setting it. This should take 2 to 4 to 6 minutes. It really depends. I think we've got the potatoes pretty warm, so it shouldn't take too long. You kind of just need to keep your eye on it. And honestly, like if you overdo it or underdo it a little bit, it's not that big a deal. But I am gonna let this rest and sit. So then we'll talk really quick about the next couple steps. Ultimately, we're gonna pop it right in the oven. Some people say you can do this with a broiler. I don't always really trust a broiler. So I personally prefer to do a 375-degree oven. And then I just keep an eye on it. It's probably gonna take about 10 to 15 more minutes to get totally solid. The way you can tell if it's done, carefully give the handle a jiggle. And if the middle of the omelet is still jiggling, you know you need to leave it in there. So just be patient and let it go. And if you notice, the edges of this pan are starting to bubble, which means my crust should be forming. Still, I'm not gonna touch it. After it bakes in the oven, we're gonna do a little trick to flip it out. So again, we're gonna very carefully place a plate over it, turn it upside down. You also may find yourself wanting to slide it out just depending on how heavy your cast iron is. I'm obviously gonna try to use a little fancier cake plate just for the gram. But do what you want, and honestly, I think cast iron pans are like cute enough that you could totally just serve this right in the pan, just throw a little more paprika on top for the look. All right, so this is just about ready to go. Before I sign off, because the next step really is popping this in the oven and letting it bake and then plating it, so we don't really need to hang out for that. I do want to say, so this recipe, while it's definitely got that Spanish nature, we got the chorizo, the paprika, and it was founded in Tortilla Española, really, starting with potatoes and eggs, you can do whatever you want. So whatever you have in your pantry, refrigerator, freezer, you could change up the ingredients. You could skip the protein altogether. You could skip the cheese. You could throw in some fresh vegetables. You've got dried herbs. You could even throw in some fresh herbs. You can really do whatever you want. And adding the potato and then cooking it this way kind of gives a regular breakfasty omelet a little more of a brunch feel, makes it a little bit richer, more robust dish. All right, so thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy and get to try making this. I will show you before we go, the edges really are starting to form here. And it's just about time to throw this in the oven. So remember, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe because I definitely need it. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy. Let me know your thoughts, feedback, comments.